Calm, focus, happiness. Hey, Mindful Tribe, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here today. And I'm here with a guest whose professional career has spanned almost 40 years. He's a psychologist. He's done all kinds of work as a therapist. And I mean, it's just amazing all the different things he's done. And I am so looking forward to sharing his story and learning more about him. He's an author, and he's just someone who has put so much out there to help people in the world who are struggling or have challenges. I'm here with Faust Ruggiero. Faust, are you in mindfulness mode today?
Bruce, I always am. That's one of those things that we hear a lot about. I tend to think about it as being conscious, keeping your mind focused in the moment. So that's kind of how I work with that. And I have my own way of teaching people about doing that. But yeah, if you stay right where you are, you put all your energies where they need to be, usually things work out pretty well for you.
Yeah, they do. Well, you've kind of answered my next question almost, but maybe you have something to add to it. What does mindfulness mean to you?
And I get that question a lot particularly today in the last 5 or 6 years, mindfulness, that term has made its way through the field. And really what it's about, it's a catchy way of saying things, but it's about your conscious energy. It's keeping it in the moment you're living in. And the missing link to this, and I haven't heard this spoken anywhere, is that the human brain really, it wants to distribute energy, but it tries to make as much of what we're doing kind of autopilot, unconscious, so it doesn't have to expend tons of energy, and then is more available to do what you want to do. So when people say, I'm struggling with this being in the moment thing, I try to tell them that's okay, because that's the natural way that your mind works. When we're telling you to be conscious and be in the moment and be mindful, whatever terms you want to use, we're actually telling you to do something that kind of violates the natural path of the way your brain typically works. It takes energy, it takes focus, it takes time to be in the moment. And we don't like to do that. We like everything fast. We want quick fixes. We get me to the finish line fast. And that's not what mindfulness and consciousness is all about.
No, absolutely not. And I want to cut to the chase because I want to dig right in and talk to you about the Process Way of Life program that you've developed. Tell us just a little bit about that so that for anybody that doesn't know you or hasn't heard about this before, has a kind of an overview.
Thanks for asking. Process Way of Life is something I developed, now it's probably 25 years ago. After, you come out of school, you're taught with all these various ways to do things. But I realized that there are all these processes, all these things that we need to do if we want a life to be happy. We want to be honest. We want to be conscious about what we're doing. We want to slow our pace down, all things like that, creativity, loving each other, all those things. They're all processes. And what I wanted to do was to put together, take the program and put it into a text that would simply say, here, these are the processes. There are 52 of them that I work with in the book. And I start with a person who's kind of angry, conflicted, whatever it may be, and bring them through this journey. And as we work through it, we come from the more rudimentary processes to the higher order processes. When you get to things like love and spirituality and those things, that's higher order. So, telling people to love themselves, boy, there's such a gap to get there. I start with the basic tenets, which is slow down your life's pace, be brutally honest with yourself so you can work with things. I teach them about fact finding and getting the right information, all those kinds of things. And then we put it into a program, and then it was put into the initial text, which was a Fix Yourself Handbook. It's 36 chapters, 52 processes. At the end of each chapter, I tell people exactly what they need to do to make it work, and it really has done well for us. People are buying this, and they're saying, "Okay, I have a program that finally says these are the things you have to do. Here's how you do it."
Yeah, well, those 52 processes are so powerful, I know, and I'm really interested in how you've laid it out on your website as well, so that people can go there and kind of get some idea about what these are. And your website is faustruggiero.com, and it's FAUSTRUGGIERO.com. So Mindful Tribe, check that out. And so to get started with this, how would you suggest people get started with your book? Just digging right in and reading your book first? Or is there a gentler way? I know you have your amazing podcast, the Fix Yourself podcast. That's one of the ways that I kind of get my feet wet with your ideas.
Yeah. When I tell people to get started, the first thing we're going to do, if let me say it this way, I wrote the book and the program to stimulate counseling sessions. I would like people to be able to go in and start working with a stimulated counseling session. So I start right from the beginning. If you come in, the first thing we're going to do is get some information. Then we're going to start taking things out of your life that don't work. Kind of unhinge the anchors, so to speak. If you're trying to swim and you still keep the anchor around your ankle, you're just not going to go anywhere fast. So we purge things. Let's take the people, places, and things out of your life that don't work. Let's get those bad habits reduced. Then we start going into the information. So I tell people, start there. Be honest with yourself. Give a good assessment of where you are at any given point. And then we start working with things. And it always works well, because what it does is it gives the person a starting spot. That's the difficult part with counseling. A lot of times people don't know where to start, and counselors don't always start them off at the beginning. They try to fix the problems because that's what people want. And we want to be able to get all the information first. That may take a good 2, 3, 4 weeks in counseling to do it right. But the more information you have, the better the program and the less mistakes you make.
Right. Right. Faust, when you were 10 years old, were there any signs that you would end up having a career like you have and do the kind of work that you're doing?
Yeah. I absolutely, Bruce. I always say it when I'm doing interviews. I was the kid that, first of all, I love people. I love to listen to them. I love to, pick out all the little nuances that make them go. And I was doing that at 10 without even knowing it. And by the time I was in high school, friends had problems. I was the listener, and I didn't advise them, but I was the support guy, and I was always there. So, it just followed suit. I just took off from that point, and I've never looked back. So it's 40 years of doing it, and I'm 68. So I'm really doing this about 58 years.
Right. And so as you look back on your journey getting into this, what was your biggest struggle in order to get to where you wanted to get to?
I had 2 or 3 things I wanted to do, so I had to figure that out first. And then it's just the typical things that you go through in life. Biggest challenge for our family was my dad having a stroke when I was 9. And really bad one. He lived for about 10 years, but he was really, really not in good shape. So, the whole family was redefined. I mean, we stayed together. My mother was a great mom, and my dad was a great guy too. But we just had a huge hurdle to deal with at that point. He was then not able to work and around the house a lot, and learn how to relearn how to do things. So all our roles in the family was redefined. So that was a huge hurdle.
Yeah. One of the things that you talk about is trust the spirit inside you.
Yeah.
How do you identify that spirit and know whether you're on the right track or whether you're just going in a complete wrong direction?
That's a great question. When I start talking about purging, a lot of times, but not all the time, what I say is first we have to disengage you. And this is a hard one today for people because people formulate their opinion of themselves based on outside references all too often. So it's, what's going on in society? How do I fit? I got to make sure I fit. I don't want to be left out or attacked, which we see a lot of today. So I want them to understand that we've been here for ions. We're still here. So obviously everything we needed has always been inside us. The earth has provided everything we need. That's where you start. It's already there. Let's get all the junk out of the way and let's start defining who you are. I don't define it for them. We're not trying to find who they are. That's ridiculous. Too many people talk about that. I think we start creating who the person wants to be once we remove all these other outside influences.
Right. I really appreciate what you say about anger because I think so many people have this anger and they use this anger as a way to move forward or as a way to get what they want. And you say, beware of using anger as a tool in your life because you might get what you want, but the cost to your spirit is a high one. And that is very powerful. How do you get that message truly across to some of the people that you work with?
I love to break things down into components. And I'll have people that come in and use anger, and they'll, and a lot of times that'll come out in couple situation. He did this, she did this, whatever. And I'll say, okay, let's look at what you wanted. And they'll tell me what they wanted. I'll say, now you were angry and you fought it out. Eventually you got it. Let's look at all the little things that happened along the way. Let's list those now so you can see them. Because when you're angry, you're in a more primal state. You're emotional, and you're really not paying attention to what's happening and who's getting hurt and all that collateral stuff. So I said, let's list all of that. And then we put it all down. I said, now you got to the end. You got what you wanted. But look at the way you lived your life for that hour or day or week or whatever it was. Now you got what you want, but now you have all this repair work to do. Is this what you think is important? Is this the way you want to live it? Because for a short period of time you were satisfied, but your bookends on each side of that were terrible. Is that so? When you put all that time together, here's that little piece of time that was great, surrounded by all this horrible stuff. And so your life isn't really happy.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk about forgiveness. I'm really interested in what you have to say for this on this topic because it's something that so many people struggle with, don't understand, don't know how to let go and move forward.
Forgiveness is one of those things, a complicated thing to do. I found for me and for the people I work with that I want to make sure that I'm able to be accountable myself first. Very hard to forgive anyone else if I'm making mistakes and I'm not accountable for them and I'm covering up and I'm trying to compartmentalize and move past those because I'm hanging on to that guilt and that shame. I may not be conscious of it. Now the next person does something and I want to try to hold them accountable, and that's not going to work. Or I want to try to forgive them, but now I didn't forgive me, so I got all that negative energy going. So I always tell people, get your own house in order first.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you're not doing things that hurt you or anyone else. If you have, make your amends, do what you have to do. Get past that first so you can say, you know what, I've taken care of business. Now look at the people who maybe you think aren't doing things nicely for you and define what those things are. And then you're going to try to work to get that out of your life. Hopefully you don't have to remove the person from your life, but at least you want to be able to say, okay, I don't want that information and that emotion dragging me down anymore, like mine was dragging me down. So it's a two-stage process. And then, for me, it's not only about admitting what I did wrong, it's being remorseful. It's making sure it doesn't happen again. All those kinds of things. I find that people who don't forgive themselves don't forgive anyone else.
Right.
People
Yeah,
who
I
aren't
find that too.
accountable don't forgive anyone else.
Yeah, I find that too. And one of the things I notice is that a lot of clients come to me and they tell me that they feel like they're stuck, that they can't move forward, that for some reason something is holding them back. And I want to talk to you about that and what you think about that. And there's so much buzz around psychedelics, and people say, "Well, should I be using psychedelics to get myself into a different place?" What are your thoughts on all those things?
It's like anything. It's not part of you. It's like the drug that's going to balance your moods. It's like the alcohol or the pot that we're going to smoke. It is an outside something coming in. So what you're really doing is you're treating a symptom. I don't care, depending on who's pushing what, because everyone's selling something.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you this is all going to work and you're going to connect with greater parts of you. And what do we know about psychedelics over the years? They exert their influence in the moment you're taking them. For a while, you're doing really great. And then 20 years later, neurological things have begun to happen because psychedelics have their primary influence on your nervous system and on your brain, primary and even more pronounced than the other drugs, the marijuanas and the alcohol. So would I advise it? No, I wouldn't. Now, for some people who are psychotic or the extreme cases, sometimes those will do some things for them. But for your everyday, all of us, I wouldn't. No.
Yeah. One of the things that I think about a lot and I promote a lot is the simple word compassion. I just think there's not enough compassion, and that we have to learn to, or we should learn to be compassionate toward other people, and then we can be more compassionate of ourselves. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. But what gets in the way is this feeling of being taken advantage of or being used. If I extend all this to you, I'm not going to get any back. Then I'm going to feel like, what am I doing? And that's not the reason you work with compassion. We work with compassion because that's who we want to be. If you're in service of someone, or you're doing something to help them, or you're compassionate, or whatever it may be, and you extend it outward and they don't give it back, that should not be your measuring stick. Your measuring stick is that you continue to do it and you redefine who you are inside and become stronger as a person. That's what it's all about, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. You've done a lot of work with people who have had issues with substances, and you've really made a big difference in that space. What are some of your words of advice if anybody listening is just really struggling with some kind of a substance?
Be honest with yourself. Go get help for it. You're not going to do it on your own. Be wary of how much. Again, it's just like we were talking about with anger. Be wary of how much you're investing into this for a short period, where you get high. My feeling is that life every day should be, it's not the highs and lows that define us, not these huge destinations. It's that level, peaceful journey that we should be working with. And the drugs don't do anything to enhance that. I don't care. People try to put that out there. Pot's going to make me feel better. No, it's not. Learning how to be powerful inside, learning about doing all the things you need to do and taking the time to get there is what's going to make you happy.
Well, there's a lot of things we can do to help fix ourselves, and that's indicated by the name of your book, Fix Yourself Handbook. How many of us can fix ourselves, and how many of us need help?
There's a fine line there. The first question is how many of us can fix ourselves, and that's almost everyone, unless you have some neurological things or that get in the way. How many of us need help? Probably most of us. But once we make the decision to say, I'm going to help me, I'm doing this, then I'll start working with it. And where I need help, then I should go have a professional counselor, someone who's educated and can take you through all this. There's nothing wrong with that. I think people should feel that they're worth it to spend that time and that money and whatever it is. Go do it. Be happy.
Well, the Fix It Yourself Handbook has the 52 processes in it. And then following that, you wrote Fix Your Anxiety Handbook. So what does that include? That, how do you pick up from your first book and carry on with your second book? What's the message that you have there?
Is what we've done. I wrote the first book and thought I might do a follow-up to that, with the same type of a concept. What we did is decide to turn it into a series, and we're going to do 7 or 8 or 9 books. We're not sure yet.
Okay.
And we looked at what's the next topic that we can help people fix in their lives. Anxiety is rampant through the world now. I mean,
yeah.
And particularly since the pandemic, it's just almost epidemic proportion. So we decided to go there. The book follows the same design as the Fix Yourself Handbook, as the first book. Works with the processes. All the books has the same short chapters so that people don't have to spend a ton of time on trying to understand what I'm saying, and has the same advice section at the bottom of every chapter. And I take them through all the necessary points when it comes to anxiety. Here's all the information you need to know, and then here's all the things you can do to start lessening that and getting your life happy and productive.
Well, I notice when you talk about your books, you say we. Do you have a writing partner? Do you have a team?
When I say we, it's a team, a publicity person, agent, those kinds of people. So we'll sit down and we'll talk and say, where do we need to go next? Then I'll write, and then we take off and we start doing all the publicity and all those kinds of things. But it's all me. I'm the writer.
Yeah. Does it feel like this process is going more smoothly and quicker now that you've written these two books in particular?
Yeah, when I wrote the first book, I spent a lot of time, about a year, learning the business before I was going to start. I kind of did it right. Most people, write and then try to figure it all out.
Yeah.
I did that. It took about 2 years, copy editor in the picture. So finally got it ready for production. This book, the Fix Your Anxiety Handbook, took me about 3.5 months to write, and edit it as we went. And the difference is, I was always a good writer, but there's good writing and there's writing for publication, and they're two very different animals. So, now I know how to connect this and shorten this and do all those kinds of things. So, now it flows, and, I'm only writing about things I am an expert in. So the information's already there. I just pick it up and go.
Do you have any insight as to how many of your followers read the Kindle or the hard copy or listen to the audio book?
I would say 80% of my readers are reading the hard copies, the paperbacks. Kindle comes next, and the audiobook at this point is a third. And what I'm finding is, and we did some research on that, the audiobook is fine. People who don't read, they're on the road, whatever it may be. But what they're saying is there's too much information. There's too much that they want to do. And to just listen to it, they get some of it. They want that reinforcer, that paperback, that whether it's Kindle or the book itself, they want that in there so they can back up and go, and okay, what did they say? What did he say there? Well, that corresponded to something I read in the other chapter. Some people are moving maybe from the fourth chapter to the sixth chapter. I got there, because you can do it. You can go back and forth. So they like that written copy rather than the formal proceedings you get in the audiobook.
Yeah, it sounds like you're describing me, because I prefer a hard copy, and I like to refer back. I'm like, oh yeah, I think I heard about that in chapter 3 or something, and I like to be underlining things or leaving sticky notes or things like that, so I can really have that hands-on experience. And also, do you feel like it uses a different part of our brain to process if we're just listening to the audio compared to reading the hard copy?
Yeah, what it does is, the visual and the audio, different parts of the brain, when you can hear it and you can see it, then you're backing it up in two different ways. But when you only hear it, then there's also a timing sequence where I got to hear it. What did he say? And now I'm 10 sentences down the road, whereas the book, you can just wait a minute. What did he say? Okay, you're not punching buttons, and where was that in the text? And so it's the old thing. Am I an audio or a visual learner? If people are reading the book out loud and they're telling me they like hearing it and seeing it, couples are reading it together and applying it to marriages. There's all these different kind of formats, but definitely the written book seems to be the way people are going.
Right. I want to ask you about bullying, because I've worked in this field for a long time. Do you have any thoughts or any stories or anything you can share with us on this topic?
Yeah, a lot. I work with the schools, and that's a near and dear point to me, the bullying thing. And what happens, it's one thing to have that external bully, but when you're bullied for a while, you begin to take that persona on, and you begin to act as a victim, not just with that bully, everywhere.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why parents, it takes a while to identify this, because the kids come home and then they're different, and they're angry, or they're reacting, or they're crying, or they're isolating, and they don't understand that's victim stuff. And my concern, as I tell people, is always that it's one thing to, if the bully is bullying and you go and hit the bully, you did something. But when you don't, you internalize all those features and you bring them right into your heart, into your mind. Now you start being that, and it really affects the way that kids and even adults move forward, because it's not just bullying in school, it's bullying in the workplace, it's social bullying, it's everywhere, it's online, you name it. So It's very important. If that's going to happen, I tell people, get it out of you first. Someone's saying these things to me, or this person's pushing me around. Get it out of your own head.
Yeah, totally. As we move forward in the interview, I want to ask you 5 quick answer questions. So just 30-second answers are perfect. Yeah. The first one is this: who is one person who has been a really powerful mindfulness influence in your life?
Mindfulness. The person for me has always been Mother Teresa, if you know who that is.
I do.
Very, very, I talk about mindful, in the moment, all the time, and down to earth. It's just fundamental and straightforward, honest, spiritual, everything in one, and always in the moment with everything that she did. So I followed her a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, an amazing person. My second question is about emotions and how you have handled your emotions differently as a result of mindfulness.
The key for me, and what I'm trying to teach, is for people to slow their lives down. You're not going to be mindful. You're not going to be conscious if you're going 100 miles an hour, because your mind's going to be all over the place. You need to slow down first. And then second, be willing to put the time in, because mindfulness demands a slower pace and commitment to learning over time.
Yeah, for sure. My next question is about breathing. We haven't talked about this. Do you have any thoughts, ideas, techniques about breathing as it relates to mindfulness?
You know what breathing does? And I use it as a preparation for meditation. Breathing puts you in the moment, because you got to focus on your breathing.
Yeah. That's
the one thing people don't think about. They think, I got to go slow. And there you are. There's that slow. And my mind has to work on this thing, because all of it ties in together. It doesn't matter what breathing exercise. You can go online and find good breathing exercises. They're all good. Essentially, what it means is slow and keep your mind focused on the in and out of your breathing. You are now in a position of mindfulness, of consciousness, in terms of what you're doing.
Right. Well, I recommend your 2 books, Fix Yourself Handbook and Fix Your Anxiety Handbook. Are there any other books you would recommend in this space?
I think that I don't do a lot of reading on things. So I mean, all I tell people to do is look at the subject matter that you're interested in, and then from there, there are so many people out there. There's so many good people out there, but I typically don't recommend anything, only because when I have people say that wasn't really for me, that's something you kind of do yourself, I think.
Well, everybody's different, that's for sure. Any apps?
No, I don't use any of that, and people will say they have apps. Do you have workbooks? No, because they're tools, and some people will work well with tools. My people and I are just that relationship back and forth. That is the app, if you will.
Right, sure. This isn't one of my 5 questions, but do you ever do retreats?
I don't at the moment, just because I'm still counseling and I don't have the time to do it. I do about 30 hours a week of counseling yet. But I don't. But what I do is I have a space on the website. If people wanted to, counsel with me or do whatever, then they can certainly call me and say, hey, I'm interested in doing some things. How can you help me? And I'm good about getting back to people.
Right. Okay, awesome. And just one more time for me to repeat that website. It's FaustRuggiero.com. So check it out. And just as we wrap up the interview, do you have any final words of advice for our listeners?
I do. Just a couple points. Try to slow your life down. Disconnect as much as you can from social media and the news, because those things really can drag you down. Get honest with yourself. Be willing to look for the facts in your life. Get your emotions out of it. I always talk about I over E, intellect over emotion. Try to keep your mind focused on what you need to do. And if you really want to move ahead and you just don't seem to be gaining traction, so to speak, go get help. Be willing to get someone to talk to, even if it's for a few months. Just get the ball rolling and be able to get it outside of yourself, get a fresh pair of eyes on your life, if you will.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I really appreciate talking to you today and appreciate what you're doing for the world. So thanks so much for that, Faust.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me
Yeah,
aboard.
sure. Yeah, you're welcome. Bye now.
Take care.
Hey, Mindful Tribe, are you experiencing anxiety? Are you experiencing stress and tension and feeling as though, it's just difficult to move on? That describes the clients I work with. Clients who have had an awful lot of problem with anxiety and stress, and maybe some kind of habits that are holding them back. And through hypnosis, we get to the bottom of it. We get right in there and we talk about it. But with hypnosis, we get right into what is causing some of this in your subconscious mind, because your subconscious mind represents about 90 to 95% of your thoughts. And you don't even realize what those thoughts are much of the time. And through hypnosis, we can get in there and we can work at this. Doesn't mean we're going to change what's going on in your subconscious mind. It means we're going to become more aware of it and then deal with it and think of it differently in the conscious mind. And I am so happy to have helped so many people with their anxiety through hypnosis and coaching. And you could be the next person. If you're listening to this episode and you would like to let go of some of this anxiety, send me an email, bruce@mindfulnessmode.com. Put coaching session in the subject line, coaching session, send it to bruce@mindfulnessmode.com. And I would love to have you on a Zoom call for a free session where we can talk about what's going on and what's happening and how can I help you. Because that's one thing I truly know about myself, is that I really love helping other people, and I would love to help you. So thanks for listening. Take what we've learned today to reach new heights of calm, focus, and happiness. Stay in the mode.